I never thought I'd be the kind of man who'd sit in an office, staring at his own reflection in the black screen of a turned-off monitor, wondering when exactly he'd stopped being respected. I used to believe that if you worked hard, stayed honest, and didn't make trouble, life would eventually balance the scales. That was before my manager decided that half my success belonged to him. My name's David. I'm 38, an engineer in a mid-sized manufacturing firm in Oregon. For 12 years, I've shown up early, left late, and carried projects that should have required entire teams. I never complained. When my colleagues quit one by one because of our manager's temper, I stayed. I thought loyalty meant something. That Friday morning, the smell of burnt coffee lingered in the break room. The fluorescent lights hummed above like a swarm of flies. I had just finished submitting the final design for the logistics upgrade, the one that saved the company over $600,000 annually. My bonus letter came through a few hours later. $10,000. It wasn't life-changing, but it felt like validation, after years of silence. I printed it, folded it, slipped it into my pocket. I was halfway to my car when I got the email. Come to my office. R. Randall's office always smelled like new carpet and stale power. His blinds were drawn halfway, stripes of white light cutting across his desk. He sat there smiling, the kind of smile that meant someone else was about to lose something. Close the door, he said. I did. He leaned back, tapping a pen against the glass tabletop. So, big news, huh? Heard the bonus finally went through. I nodded cautiously. Yeah, I just got the confirmation. That's great, he said, though his tone didn't sound happy. You know, when a manager fights for his team, it's only fair he shares in the rewards. Wouldn't you agree? I blinked. What do you mean? He smiled wider. I mean you'll give me half of your bonus. 5,000. Consider it. Appreciation for my leadership. You wouldn't have landed that project without my approval anyway. At first I thought he was joking. I even laughed. One of those awkward half chuckles you do when you're trying to gauge if the other person's serious. He wasn't laughing. He pulled out a printed sheet from a folder, slid it across the desk. Just sign here. You'll get the bonus in your account Monday, then transfer 5,000 to this number. Easy. It was his personal account. The room felt smaller. The clock behind him ticked too loud. Somewhere down the hall, a copier beeped. Paper jammed. Randall, I said carefully, you're asking me to give you half of my bonus? He shrugged. I'm not asking, David. I'm telling you how things work here. You think the upper management cares who did the work? They see results because I manage you. That's why the money comes through. You should be grateful I'm letting you keep half. Grateful? That word hit harder than I expected. For a second I saw myself reflected in the glass table. Same man who'd stayed late fixing his mistakes. Same man who covered his reports when he forgot deadlines. Same man who trained new hires he later took credit for. Something in me cracked. Quietly. No sound, just a clean internal break. I stood up slowly. My chair made a soft scraping sound against the tile. I didn't raise my voice, didn't curse. I just looked at him. The same way you look at a blueprint right before you decide to tear the whole thing down. You'll have the money Monday, I said. His eyebrows lifted, pleased. Good man. I knew you'd understand. I walked out without another word. My pulse was steady, almost calm. Down the hall, the hum of the factory floor grew louder, machines clanging, forklifts moving pallets, the smell of oil and metal. I'd built half those systems myself. None of them ever failed. People did. Outside, the parking lot shimmered in the afternoon heat. I unlocked my car, sat inside, and for the first time in years, didn't start the engine. I just sat there, watching my own reflection in the rearview mirror. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't going to give him a single cent. But I also wasn't going to argue. Men like Randall feed on confrontation. They've built entire careers out of twisting anger into justification. No, if I was going to do this, it had to be quiet, precise. I drove home with the windows down, wind drowning the noise in my head. My bonus wasn't just money now, it was leverage. It was evidence. Proof that he believed he could own me, and maybe proof that he'd done it before. When I got home, I took out an old notebook from the drawer, the kind I used in my early years before everything went digital. I wrote a date at the top of a fresh page. March 17th, Randall demanded 50% of bonus. Said it's how things work. Personal account info attached. Intent to investigate quietly. Then I underlined the last word. Quietly. I sat back, breathing slow. The anger wasn't loud anymore. It was sharp, clean, methodical, the kind that builds, not explodes. Outside my window, the streetlights flickered on one by one. Somewhere, a dog barked. I looked down at the paper again, the ink still wet, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. He thought I'd fold. He thought I'd pay. But when I got up from that table, everything had already changed. I showed up to work Monday morning like nothing had happened. Same coffee mug, same pressed shirt, same small nod to the security guard at the front desk. I'd had the whole weekend to think about Randall's demand, and the more I replayed it, the clearer it became. Men like him only feel safe when you let them believe you're obedient. So I smiled. When he passed me in the hallway that morning, he gave me that smug little grin, the one that said, "I own you now." I nodded back, calm, almost friendly. "Morning, boss." He clapped my shoulder. "Don't forget our agreement, David. We'll make it official after payroll hits." "Of course," I said. "Wouldn't dream of forgetting." He smiled again, satisfied, but he didn't notice the tiny smile I gave him in return, the kind of smile a man wears right before cutting through steel. Randall loved to talk. He thought talking meant power. Every Monday he'd hold a strategy meeting, which was really just him taking credit for everyone else's work. The rest of the team had learned to zone out, a dozen faces nodding in silence while he rewrote reality. But I didn't tune out that day. I listened. He mentioned how he had negotiated the logistics contract that earned us the company bonus, how he had personally handled all technical revisions, how upper management trusted him to lead. Each lie came out polished and practiced. But what he didn't notice was the rhythm of his own words, the way he repeated specific phrases that matched reports I'd written months ago. He wasn't just bragging, he was quoting me. By noon, I had a plan forming in my head, not a sudden flash, but a cold, deliberate design, like a blueprint. I started small. I began forwarding every email I sent him to my personal inbox. Every project file, every technical note, every signed approval, copied quietly to a folder on my home drive labeled Q4 Logistics Archive. Nothing suspicious, nothing loud. Then I started checking the shared drive. Randall's final reports folder was locked, but his assistant, poor Kevin, who'd been overworked and underpaid like the rest of us, had access for formatting. A simple coffee chat later, Kevin let slip that Randall always kept two versions of the same file. One for the team, one for the board. I didn't ask to see it then. I didn't need to. Not yet. That week, Randall called me into his office twice. Both times he mentioned the upcoming transfer of my bonus. He even wrote his account number on a sticky note and slid it across his desk. "Just so you don't forget," he said, smirking. I folded the note neatly, slipped it into my pocket, and said, "Wouldn't dream of it, sir." He thought I was being obedient, but the moment I left, I placed that note in my folder, with the timestamp, date, and a quick note. March 21st, 9:42 a.m. Demanded direct transfer to personal account, under implied threat of career consequence. Over the next few days, I noticed things I'd never bothered to see before. Randall's office printer was always warm. He was printing more than usual. He spent long stretches behind closed doors, then emerged suddenly cheerful, checking his phone like someone waiting for good news. Then on Thursday, something caught my attention. While heading to the copier, I saw an open folder on the communal printer tray. Randall's, obviously, since no one else used color ink. The header read, Executive Compensation Allocation Report, Confidential. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Under his name was a line of numbers, quarterly bonus distribution. There were columns with percentages, initials, and amounts. My initials DT sat next to $10,000, but next to his, $27,500, and the remark, Project Lead Allocation plus Discretionary Adjustment. Discretionary adjustment. That meant he'd already claimed additional pay for the same project. Money he never mentioned to anyone. The demand for half my bonus wasn't greed, it was habit. He'd been double-dipping for years. I felt my jaw tighten. Then I took a breath and let it go. No anger, just data. I printed a copy, slipped it into my folder, and walked back to my desk. My coworkers were joking about lunch plans, oblivious. I smiled, joined in, asked about the best tacos downtown, because that's what you do when you're building something quietly. That night, at home, I spread the papers across my kitchen table like evidence in a courtroom. Sticky note, payroll file, bonus sheet. The pattern was clear. Randall had been siphoning employee bonuses into his own account for at least 2 fiscal cycles. The next morning, I emailed HR. Nothing accusatory, just a simple, casual request. Hi, could you confirm the official project bonus allocations for Q4? I'm updating my personal tax records. Within an hour, I got a polite response. Hi, David. According to our records, all bonuses were distributed as per management's reporting. Randall should have the detailed breakdown. Perfect. That was confirmation that HR didn't actually see the underlying data. They trusted whatever Randall gave them, which meant if he was falsifying reports, he was doing it without oversight. Friday afternoon, I took a walk down to accounting. The head accountant, Susan, had been there since the company's founding. She respected me, mostly because I once stayed until midnight, helping her debug a shipment audit. I asked if she could check something for me, hypothetically. Suppose a manager submitted adjusted bonus percentages, I said carefully. Would that require director-level approval? She frowned. Technically, yes. Why? Just curious, I said, smiling, trying to understand the process. She gave me a look that said she wasn't buying it, but she didn't press. Still, I saw the spark of curiosity in her eyes, and that was enough. That night, Randall texted me. Remember Monday? I expect confirmation of transfer by noon. I stared at the screen for a long time. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. I just typed back. Understood. Then I opened a new document on my laptop. Title, Internal Financial Misconduct Summary, Preliminary Evidence. I listed everything chronologically. Attached screenshots, dates, HR emails, copies of payroll sheets. I didn't send it anywhere yet, but it was ready. On Sunday evening, as the sun went down, I brewed a pot of coffee, sat by my window, and read through every word I'd written. By the time I finished, I wasn't just documenting corruption. I was designing an exit. His, not mine. Because I finally understood something. Men like Randall don't fall when you push them. They fall when they think you're still holding them up. And come Monday, he'd never see the hand letting go. Monday came, gray and quiet, the kind of morning that makes even the walls of the office seem cautious. I arrived 15 minutes early, as always. Coffee in hand, face calm, heartbeat steady. Randall's office light was already on. Through the glass I could see him typing, his shoulders sharp and tense. I wondered if he even slept. Men who build their careers on lies rarely rest well. He called me in at 9:03. Did the transfer go through? He asked, tone brisk, like we were discussing inventory instead of extortion. I placed a folded envelope on his desk. He smiled before opening it, like a man savoring victory. Inside was a printed confirmation slip from my bank, except there was no transfer. Just a note on company letterhead. Payment under review. Awaiting audit clearance. He blinked. What's this? Bank policy, I said simply, watching his expression. They hold any unusual transfers for 72 hours to verify compliance. Large sums, personal accounts, you know how it is. He frowned, not angry yet, but confused. I told you to just send it. No one would have noticed. I'm sure, I said, forcing a small smile. But these new compliance systems are unpredictable. Everything's automatic now. He stared at me, and for the first time, I saw something flicker behind his eyes. A trace of worry, not guilt. Just the realization that his control wasn't absolute. By noon, word spread that corporate had requested an internal review of Q4 project finances. It wasn't official yet, but the whispers moved fast. Accounting, HR, even the design floor. I kept my head down, worked like normal. Let the rumors do their job. Randall stormed around the office that afternoon, barking questions. Who's been talking to HQ? Who accessed the payroll drive? His voice carried across cubicles like a storm siren. Susan from accounting glanced at me as he passed. Just a small nod. Confirmation that she'd started digging. I hadn't asked her to. She did it on her own. People like Randall create their own enemies. All you have to do is give them permission to look closer. That evening, as he was leaving, Randall stopped by my desk. Let's talk, he said. We went into the break room, empty except for the hum of the vending machine. He shut the door. David, he started, lowering his voice, I hope you understand the gravity of what's happening. If you've been sharing confidential data— I haven't, I interrupted, calm. Should I have been? He blinked. Don't play smart. You think HR won't trace this back to you? Trace what? I asked, tilting my head slightly. For a moment the silence stretched between us. Then he exhaled sharply. Fine. I'm trying to protect you. If this audit gets out of hand, we'll both look bad. Keep quiet. Delete anything you have. I'll handle it. He was sweating. I could see it glistening just below his hairline. I smiled politely. Of course, Randall. You've always handled things so well. He left the room first, but not before giving me a look I recognized. The look of a man who just realized his reflection doesn't blink back. The next morning, the company's Slack channel lit up. All department heads, please prepare documentation for internal compliance review. Effective immediately. Randall's name was tagged. So was mine. By mid-afternoon, HR requested all email correspondence related to the logistics contract. I sent them everything. Every thread, every instruction, every note from Randall telling me to let him handle the numbers. 32 attachments, 22 emails, 4 sticky note photos, dated and time-stamped. I didn't need to accuse him. The emails did it for me. Later that day, Susan from accounting stopped by my cubicle. She placed a sealed envelope on my desk without a word. I opened it after she left. Inside were photocopies of the Executive Compensation Allocation Report, the same one I'd found on the printer, now stamped, verified with her initials and date. At the bottom, she'd written in pencil, He's been doing this since Q2 last year. I checked the archives. You're not the only one he shorted. That night, as I walked to my car, I saw Randall in the parking lot, talking on his phone. His voice carried, sharp, panicked. I caught pieces. They can't audit that, and don't you dare tell them it was my directive. He slammed his car door and peeled out of the lot, tires screeching. I sat there in my car a few minutes longer, letting the sound fade. The silence afterward felt clean. On Wednesday, the audit team arrived from the head office. 2 people in gray suits, clipboards in hand. They went straight to Randall's office. He greeted them with his usual fake confidence, but his laugh sounded off. Too high, too quick. The meeting lasted 3 hours. When they left, he didn't come out for the rest of the day. His blinds stayed closed, his door locked. That night, I received an email from one of the auditors. Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Turner. Your records were crucial in establishing inconsistencies. Please do not discuss this matter with other employees until we conclude the review. I stared at that line for a while. Inconsistencies. A polite corporate way of saying fraud. Randall didn't show up Thursday morning. Rumor had it he'd called in sick. By noon, HR scheduled an all-staff meeting for Friday. Everyone knew what it meant. Friday came. The air in the office felt electric, buzzing with anticipation and whispered justice. People gathered near the conference room. I stayed at my desk until someone called my name. "David, they want you in there," Susan said quietly. I walked in. Randall was already seated at the far end of the table, pale, jaw tight. The head of HR and 2 auditors sat opposite him. A few department leads filled the room. The HR director began, voice calm, clinical. "Mr. Randall, during the review of the Q4 financials, we discovered unauthorized alterations to the employee bonus structure, including the reassignment of funds into an account registered in your name." Randall's hands trembled. That's a misunderstanding. I was reallocating for tax purposes." "We verified the account details," she interrupted. "Funds were transferred to a personal account unrelated to company operations. This violates Section 8.2 of your employment contract." He looked around, desperate, eyes darting toward me. I met his gaze and held it, steady, silent, the same way I had that day in his office. "Effective immediately," HR continued. "Your employment is terminated. You will vacate your office by end of day. Legal counsel will contact you regarding next steps." For a moment, no one breathed. Then Randall stood, face red, voice cracking. "You set me up," he hissed. "You think they won't figure it out?" I didn't reply. He grabbed his briefcase, papers spilling, stormed out without another word. The door closed behind him with a heavy click that echoed through the room. The HR director turned to me. "Mr. Turner, thank you for your cooperation. Corporate is aware of your contribution to uncovering this. You've been formally recommended for internal review. In a good way." The others looked at me with a mix of relief and awe. For the first time in years, the office felt lighter. That evening, I sat alone at my desk long after everyone left. The lights dimmed automatically at 7. I didn't move. On the corner of my monitor, a reflection stared back, calm, quiet, unfamiliar. Randall had once told me, "You'll give me half of your bonus." He was wrong. He gave me something far better. He gave me the blueprint for his own collapse. And all I had to do was follow it. When people talk about revenge, they picture fireworks, shouting chaos, grand gestures. But that's not how real justice feels. It's quiet, cold, clean. It happens in the space between words, in the silence that follows when a man finally realizes he's no longer in control. The Monday after Randall's firing, the office was unnaturally peaceful. His nameplate had been removed from the door. The blinds were open for the first time in years, letting sunlight pour across his empty desk. Someone had even thrown away his old coffee mug, the one that said, "Boss Level, God Mode." I arrived early, as usual, habit, or maybe ritual. Susan waved at me from accounting, smiling like someone who'd finally taken a deep breath, after holding it for months. People were lighter now, voices softer, laughter real. It was as if the building itself had exhaled. By mid-morning, an email arrived from corporate HR. Subject: Recognition Notice. Confidential David Turner. Your cooperation during the recent compliance audit has been noted by executive leadership. Please attend a meeting with the regional director at 3 p.m. 3 o'clock. I didn't know what to expect. Praise, maybe. A handshake. Maybe just a formal thank you. But as I sat there reading the email again, I realized something. I wasn't nervous. The man who once feared every conversation with his boss was gone. At 3 sharp, I walked into the conference room. The regional director, a calm woman named Ellen Park, was there with 2 others from HQ. She gestured for me to sit. "David," she began, "I'll be brief. Your handling of the Randall matter was exemplary. You didn't leak information. You didn't escalate publicly. You followed proper channels. That kind of discretion is rare. She slid a folder across the table. Inside was a letter, formal, embossed, company seal at the top. Effective immediately, you are being promoted to Engineering Supervisor, Logistics Division, Portland Branch. Salary adjustment and performance bonus attached. I blinked. Supervisor? She smiled. You've been doing that job unofficially for years. Now it's official. And frankly, we need someone to rebuild what Randall damaged. For a moment, I couldn't speak. All I could think about was that table in Randall's office, where he once told me I'd give him half of my bonus. And now, sitting in front of his superiors, I realized I was about to take his chair. Thank you, I said quietly. I won't waste it. I know, Ellen replied. And David, for what it's worth, this company owes you more than a promotion. You reminded us that silence doesn't mean loyalty. That evening, when the office emptied out, I walked to Randall's old office. It wasn't locked. His desk had been cleared, drawers empty except for a single paperclip and a stain from a long-forgotten coffee spill. The air smelled faintly of cologne and dust. I stood there for a moment, then sat down in his chair. The leather creaked softly. I leaned back, hands resting on the desk, where he once tapped his pen while explaining how the world worked. And then I laughed, not bitterly, not angrily, just quietly. The kind of laugh that comes when life finally balances its books. On the desk, someone had left a printed memo from HR, the final audit report. Out of habit, I skimmed it. It detailed every fraudulent transaction, bonus reallocations, false invoices, managerial reimbursements. A total of $126,400 diverted over 2 years. Near the end, one line caught my eye. Funds recovered through legal restitution process, initiated March 24th. That was today. I smiled, realizing what it meant. They'd frozen his accounts. He wouldn't be keeping a dime. The irony was beautiful. The same system he used to exploit others had now turned against him with mechanical precision. No shouting, no drama, just signatures and digital timestamps, quietly erasing his arrogance. On my way out, I passed by Kevin, the young assistant who'd once worked under Randall. He looked nervous. Hey, I said, pausing. How are you holding up? He shrugged. Weird, I guess. Feels like we're waiting for someone to start yelling again, but no one's yelling. Then enjoy the quiet, I said. You've earned it. He smiled, the first real one I'd seen on his face in months. That night, I stopped by a small diner on Fifth Avenue, the same one I used to eat at when the office days felt endless. I ordered coffee and pie, sat by the window, and watched the city move, people rushing, phones glowing, the sound of life continuing. The waitress refilled my cup. Long day, she asked. I smiled. Long year, she laughed softly. You look like a man who just finished something important. I did, I said. I just didn't realize how good it would feel to be done. I watched the steam rise from the mug, twisting like a ghost of every word I'd swallowed over the years. All the times I'd stayed silent, all the humiliation I'd accepted, thinking it made me stronger. It didn't make me stronger. It made me patient. And patience, I realized, is just vengeance waiting for timing. A week later, Randall's name appeared in the company-wide memo. Former employee under investigation for financial misconduct. He'd tried to appeal his termination. The board denied it unanimously. By then, I had already moved into his office. I replaced his mug with my own, a plain white one. No slogans, no arrogance, just simplicity. On the first morning in my new role, I gathered the team. No speeches, no theatrics. Just one sentence. From now on, no one here works for someone else's credit. The room went quiet. Then one by one, they nodded. Later that day, as the sun fell through the blinds, I sat again at that same desk, the one that used to feel like a place of fear. I thought about that moment weeks ago when he looked me in the eye and said, "You'll give me half of your bonus." He thought he was making a statement of power. But what he didn't know was that he was signing the blueprint for his own destruction. When I got up from that table, everything changed. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally understood my worth. And sometimes that's all justice really is. Not shouting, not triumph. Just sitting in the same chair where someone once tried to break you, and realizing they built it for you instead.